Illness is the night side of life, a more onerous citizenship. Everyone who is born holds dual citizenship, in the kingdom of the well and in the kingdom of the sick. Although we'd all obviously prefer to only ever use our good passport, sooner or later, each of us is obliged, at least for a little while, to identify ourselves as citizens of that other place. That really haunting observation from Susan Sontag, it perfectly sets the stage for our journey today. It's a stark reminder of a profound universal truth. No matter who we are, we're really always just one doctor's visit, one routine blood test, or one terrifying symptom away from crossing the border into that night side of life. Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's explainer. We are opening up the pages of Siddhartha Mukherjee's phenomenal, Pulitzer Prize-winning book, The Emperor of All Maladies. But look, we aren't just reading through a dry medical textbook today. Not at all. We're looking at an absolute masterclass in history, biology, and human resilience. We're going to explore the vast, sweeping biography of an immortal illness that has literally haunted humanity for thousands of years, all while grounding it in the deeply personal, terrifyingly immediate human stakes of the people drafted into its war.
Part 1. The Kingdom of the Sick. A sudden medical crisis.
To truly grasp the gravity of this subject, we really need to start right in the middle of the action. Picture this. It's the spring of 2004, and I want to introduce you to Carla Reed. She's a 30-year-old kindergarten teacher from Massachusetts. She's a mother of 3 young kids, vivacious, energetic, totally used to chasing down 5-year-olds all day long. Up to this point, she's never been seriously ill. But then, in late April, these strange things start happening. Bizarre map-shaped bruises just suddenly appear on her back. Her gums begin turning white. By early May, the exhaustion hits her so hard that this incredibly active mother is literally crawling on all fours down the hallways of her own house, just trying to get from room to room. She goes to a doctor, but she's sent home. They tell her, maybe it's a migraine, try taking some aspirin. But the aspirin, it just makes her gums bleed even more. Finally, on May 19th, she wakes up with this strange numbness in her head. Her intuition is screaming that something catastrophic is brewing. So she goes to the clinic, demands a blood test, and the blood that comes out of her vein isn't rich in red, it's watery, pale, and dilute. The very next morning, Carla is at the fish market. She's got a half-pound salmon steak in her shopping basket. She's worried about it spoiling in the sun. She's trying to plan out her hectic day with the carpool and the kids. And then her phone rings. It's the nurse from the clinic, and her voice is tight. Urgent. Come now, she says. The diagnosis is acute lymphoblastic leukemia. It's an explosive, incredibly violent cancer of the white blood cells. As one nurse on the oncology ward likes to point out, with this specific disease, even a paper cut is an emergency. Just like that, in a fraction of a second, Carla's entire world shifts. That totally commonplace, everyday worry about a fish spoiling in a basket is suddenly juxtaposed against the visceral terror of millions of malignant cells multiplying inside her own veins. She has crossed the border into the kingdom of the sick. Part 2. Biography of an Illness. The King of Terrors. So, stepping back for a moment from the terrifying microscopic emergency happening in Carla's hospital room on the 14th floor of Mass General, we need to look at the macro perspective. And what's really interesting here is how this illness is framed. We're talking about a disease that a 19th century surgeon once actually dubbed the Emperor of All Maladies, the King of Terrors. The source material doesn't just treat cancer as a medical condition to be reviewed, it treats it as a living, breathing entity. This explainer is quite literally a biography of that entity. Cancer is this shape-shifting, immortal adversary with its own deeply ingrained personality and behavior. It's this clandestine, whispering about illness that is somehow metamorphosed into the defining plague of our generation. Now, an adversary this pervasive naturally breeds its own adversaries, the human beings who have decided to fight back. Back in the mid-20th century, 2 incredible idealists really stood at the epicenter of this hypnotic, obsessive quest to launch a national war on cancer. First, you have Sidney Farber. He's the father of modern chemotherapy, a pediatric pathologist who basically accidentally discovered a powerful anti-cancer chemical in a vitamin analog, and he actually dared to dream of a universal cure. And then you have Mary Lasker, a Manhattan socialite who possessed just legendary social and political energy. Together, they perfectly exemplify the grit, the imagination, and, let's be honest, sometimes the incredible hubris of the generations of men and women who waged a battle against an entirely formless, timeless enemy. But here's the thing. This war is way older than those mid-century modernists. Humanity's desperation has these ancient, really violent echoes. The author recounts this unbelievable story of Atassa, a Persian queen who, in a fit of absolute nihilistic fury, actually had a slave cut off her cancer-affected breast with a knife. And thousands of years later, you see that exact same desperation in the 19th century surgeon William Halsted.
He literally chiseled away at patients with increasingly disfiguring surgeries, firmly believing that cutting more simply meant curing more. It reflects the intense isolation, the profound rage of patients who find themselves completely trapped. The novelist Alexander Solzhenitsyn vividly described a cancer diagnosis as entering a borderless medical gulag, a prison state that just strips you of your identity and controls your every single action.
Part 3. A more perfect version. The underlying biology. Okay, so what is this enemy actually doing in the dark? To understand that, we have to look at the underlying biology, which beautifully illustrates the absolute core of the problem. On one hand, normal cell growth is an unfathomably powerful, beautiful mechanism. It's what allows us to grow, adapt, recover, and repair. And it is tightly regulated by these incredibly strict genetic circuits. But cancer? Well, cancer is what happens when those exact circuits are broken by DNA mutations. The cell literally forgets how to die. It unmoors itself from normal regulation and just begins to relentlessly, uninhibitedly divide. It uses the exact same mechanisms that allow us to live, but it uses them to live at the cost of our living. I really want you to absorb this quote from the source material. Cancer cells grow faster, adapt better. They are more perfect versions of ourselves. Think about the chilling paradox in those words for a second. Cancer isn't some alien, foreign invader coming from the outside to attack you. Not at all. It is a distorted, deeply intimate reflection of your own vital functions. It's you growing uncontrollably. Which brings us to the grand scientific challenge of our species. Why is defeating cancer so monumentally difficult? Simply put, it's because the disease is literally built into our genomes. The mutated genes that cause cancer are just distorted versions of the genes that perform our most vital, everyday cellular functions. They are deeply, deeply entwined. Untangling normal growth from malignant growth without accidentally killing the human host in the process is incredibly complex. And what's more, because these mutations accumulate as we age, cancer is intrinsically related to our extending lifespans. As the author brilliantly notes, if we seek biological immortality, well, perversely, so does the cancer cell. Part 4. The human stakes. Back to Carla Reed. Let's pull back from the abstract biology for a minute and see how all of this builds into the clinical reality. We can never forget that in the midst of all this scientific abstraction, cancer begins and ends with people. While we're out here talking about genomes and ancient Persian queens, Carla is sitting in a sterilized hospital room fighting her own immediate war. Her mother is rocking silently in a chair, having just flown in on an overnight flight. Interns are donning masks, antibiotics are being dripped into her veins. The author, who is an oncology fellow at the time, has to walk into that room, draw a bone marrow sample, and explain what lies ahead. Basically a hurdle from one lab to another, endless tests, and, if the diagnosis holds, more than a year of incredibly grueling chemotherapy. And then comes the towering statistic. When Carla sits up, her eyes sharpening, and asks the inevitable question, what are my chances? The terrifying reality of the disease is laid completely bare. Her chances of being cured of this explosive leukemia are about 30%, a little less than 1 in 3. It is an absolute emotional gut punch. This is the heavy, devastating gravity that pulls everything and everyone into the orbit of cancer. Which leaves us, at the end of this explainer, staring at the ultimate question posed by the source material. Knowing what we know now, that cancer is this ancient, shape-shifting adversary fundamentally intertwined with our own cellular desire to live and grow, is its end even conceivable in the future? Is it actually possible to unbraid normal growth from malignant growth and eradicate this disease from our bodies and societies forever? It's a question that has consumed generations of idealists, doctors, and patients alike. And as we continue to unlock the secrets of the human genome, it is absolutely the defining question we carry forward. Thanks for joining me on this explainer today, and always keep questioning the world around you.